My name is Susanna Mittermaier, and what I do in this reality is I'm a so-called psychologist. So I have the pleasure of working with people who come with some kind of troubles. And the funny thing is, most of them, who have decided something is wrong with them, they suddenly discover something totally different. So growing up where I did was in Austria, in Vienna. When I was in Vienna with lots of people around me, I did not know how to deal with all this input, all these stimuli from not only from cars and traffic, but mostly from people. People are actually very loud. You might have noticed when you walk around in nature and the peace and the quiet, and then you go to a big city, it's like, wow, there's a lot of stuff going on. And so I was one of those weird kids that wanted to be by themselves, because that was the only way where I could kind of find my peace and find the peace of me being me. And so I always liked people. So I so desired to find a way to both be able to be with people and enjoy them, and also at the same time having ease with being myself. From being really good at satisfying other people's needs and being right in this world, I had to find out, who do I desire to be? So I finally asked a question. I mean, that's huge, of course, it's huge because in a world where it's all about answers and being right and conclusions, asking questions, what do I truly desire? Holy moly. So then I'm like, so what would I like to create in this world? And I wrote everything down that came up in my world. A lot was about showing people, hey, life can be fun. Life can be ease. It's not all about fitting in. It's about, being who you are, showing up as you. So I'm like, so what is this profession called that does that? So I looked in my university book, because that's the reference point I had. My family was like, please, can someone have a university degree, just to have also be a great family. So I'm like, okay, so this is obviously what I have to go after. So I looked in the university book. So what is that profession called? Couldn't find anything, couldn't find anything. So after a while, I'm like, okay, so what comes closest to that? Or what do I think comes closest to that? And the thing that popped was psychologist. I'm like, I have no idea what that is, but sounds kind of interesting. And so I started, and it was a 5-year program, and I couldn't believe it. I actually finished it. This was a big hallelujah moment for everybody, especially myself. I'm like, Mittermaier finished an education. Wow. Because I was, one of these kids, I was doing acting, cheerleading, judo, figure skating, I think it's called in English, and all these very diverse things, but I never finished anything. I'm like, I drove my parents nuts with that. So hallelujah, I finished an education. Wonderful, great. I started out being a normal psychologist. After my education, I did everything I was supposed to do with psychotherapy and the neuropsychological testings I did, which basically means that, people come and there's the question mark of, does this person have ADHD, autism, where are they at? And then what can we do about it? And that was most of my work, doing all these testings, doing psychotherapy with people, counseling of staff. So what I had to go after was the education I had. And that was wonderful. And for me, there was always something missing. I had this thing in the back of my head that there's something else available, there's something else possible. And I came in contact with Access Consciousness, which is a worldwide movement who offers tools to change our lives. So I did a couple of classes. I used the tools on myself, and I was acknowledged for exactly what I was asking for. I was acknowledged for that everything we think is wrong about us is actually strong. So I started to, play with the tools and with myself, and then also with the people that I met. And I just knew, okay, there's something different available. So I created something called pragmatic psychology, which is all about, not looking at what is wrong, not looking at the dramatics, but at the pragmatics. Like this world is all about, hey, what's wrong? And how can we find a solution about it? What's the cause and what's the solution? And, this pragmatic perspective is actually where it's all about, okay, so what is and what works and how does it get any better in this?
So the way we've learned to choose in this world is to always look at what's the right choice and what is the wrong choice. So with this different element of knowing comes in a whole new world of possibilities. And you look at those choices and go, if I choose this, what do I know about it? What will this choice create for my future?
The first book I wrote, for example, it was like, I wrote it for me. I didn't even plan on writing a book because all this whole different perspective of every wrongness is a strongness is just so different that I'm like, okay, I'm going to write this down for me. I'm going to make some notes while I work with clients so I get a different sense of what's possible. And writing this, I'm like, I don't know if I should publish this because this is so strange. And so I had people around me who encouraged me to, hey, like, just do it. So I got it out in the world, and I put my hands in front of my eyes. I'm like, okay, I don't want to hear any feedback. I don't want to hear any feedback because I'm sure people are going to find this horrible. I'm sure somebody's going to throw tomatoes at me. Maybe I'm going to be thrown off this planet, into exile for crazy people because this is such a different perspective. And so I'm like, please don't tell me what you think about it. And then someday somebody said, oh my God, like, thank you. What you wrote in that book, I always knew this. Like, I always knew this, but nobody has ever said it. Nobody has ever voiced it, but you voicing this gave me a sense of acknowledgement that I'm not crazy. And all these people from, different parts of the world, different professions, went, thank you so much for having the courage to voice this. And, this is where the total difference of us, where you think you're crazy and you being this in the world, you not worrying about judgments, is where you oftentimes have no idea what you encourage in people and what you inspire in people. So go for it. What did you always wanted to tell the world that you held back so far, that if you would just voice it, would inspire at least one person in the world? So what if today was the first day of the rest of your life where you actually do not judge yourself? And I know this is probably a big ask because everything you've learned, everything you've been faced with, everything you've been handed to from this world is judgments and making yourself wrong and not liking yourself. And all of that is normal. And what if today is the day where you start on the journey of no longer needing to be normal, but embracing the gift of you being you and the celebration of you being everything you are, with all your colors, with all your nuances, with all your craziness, with all your difference, and inspire yourself and be surprised of how you, with that, inspire the world.